Comes back.
I'm like, okay.
There's
no need.
7 o'clock.
Yeah, and I don't
It's
know
7
what-
o'clock.
They didn't say charges. I don't know what that,
Exactly.
what does that include?
All right. We're going to call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order on August 3rd, 2022. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Clee,
Here.
Alderman Camo, Alderman Govea,
Here.
Alderman Clemens, Alderwoman Timmons,
Here.
Alderman Moran is here, Mayor Donchus,
I'm here, and Alderman Tebow is here as a visiting member of the board. Public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak to the committee? All right, communications. First from Alex Como regarding, Alderman Alex Como, Alderman Moran.
communications from Alderman Camo, RE lighting for Levine Field Finance Committee meeting on August 3rd.
And is there a motion there to accept and place on file, maybe?
Just, there are no objection.
If there are no objections, we'll accept that and place it on file. Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make a motion to place on file and approve the renewal contract with the Humane Society for an additional year in the amount not to exceed $99,081. Funding will be through the Department 171 Community Services, Fund 56214, Humane Society, Animal Control / General Fund.
Is there anyone here on this? Maybe Ms. Gerard?
Hi, thank you. Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. Director Bagley was not able to join us tonight. The Humane Society is a contract that we do every year with them, and it is at the same cost year over year of $99,081. They provide services for housing animals, dogs, cats, and other small animals, adoption of stray animals, veterinarian services, owner location of stray animals, and the quarantine of unvaccinated dogs and cats that have been bit by a person or another animal. And they also process the animals that have been found to be positive with rabies. Director Bagley receives a quarterly report on the animals that come in and then all the tracking that they do for us with this contract.
And this has been in place, we've had a contract with them for decades, I think, right?
Yes, this has been going back many, many years. Director Bagley has been very happy with the services that the Humane Society of Greater Nashua has provided.
Questions, comments? Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to welcome Ms. Gerard. Thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Mayor, as you pointed out, this is the same contract, the same dollar amount that's been year after year. There's been no increase in it and so on. And I agree with Director Bagley. I think we've gotten really good service, and technically they're the only game in town. So thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to place on file and approve the purchase of a 2022 light structure system, including LED lights for Levine Park from Musco Sports Lighting of Oskaloosa, Iowa, in the amount not to exceed $265,721 pursuant to the Sourcewell contract number 07619-MSL. Funding will be through the Department 177 Parks and Recreation Fund Trust Account Category 71 Equipment.
And I believe Mr. Conant is here.
I am, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm here.
Can you give us just a brief overview on this?
Yes, the current lighting that we have at the softball fields at Levine is extremely dated and aged. The brackets that are used to adjust the lighting are so aged they can no longer be adjusted. This causes for some of the lights to shine in players' faces and creates a hazardous environment. So this is, this is a great project, and I hope to see it move forward.
Anyone? Alderman Tebow, Alderwoman Cleve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that this is something that we do have to fund, and as Alderman Como had sent us in his very detailed, just one of the pictures that kind of struck me was the variety of lighting from when it started in 1977, where it was very bright and so on, to today where it's not very bright, and there's a potential of, I think he mentioned at another meeting, a potential of this falling and hurting somebody. So we do have to do something, and I trust Mr. Conan in that this is the appropriate thing to do. And so I think we should give a positive motion to this. Thank you.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is this currently, would you say, in same thing with like a St. Andrews Park, right? Is this our worst lighting right now for all our fields? Or are there any other fields that are experiencing this that we're going to have to look at in the future?
I would say right now Labine is the worst. Yes, there are other situations that we need to look into. If the Mine Falls comes to mind, the lighting on Artillery Lane, and this will be the first LED lighting that we have in any of our athletic fields in the city, which, I think is something we should ultimately try and transfer to. But yes, this is the worst, and no, this isn't the only spot that we should be looking at.
Follow up.
Yes.
So I guess at that point then, if it's a safety risk, then I would support it when it comes to the Board of Aldermen, because I've used the ones at the other fields, and they're not safety risks, even though they may be starting to get old themselves. So yeah, I'll support it when it comes to the Board of Aldermen.
Anyone else? Alderwoman Cleve.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for indulging me. Mr. Conant, would it be an imposition or too difficult for you to give us a kind of a report to the Board of Aldermen as to the status of all the lighting within these fields? Because to Alderman Thibault's comment about other fields, and I heard you say artillery, and my little spidey senses kind of went up because that's within my ward, so I'm going to be asking about it. And so I would like to kind of know, just also for future, as to how we should go about working these. I'd like to see more LED lights going in, and we could kind of create a calendar or schedule, I guess it would be the appropriate word, as to how we go about getting these done. You all do a phenomenal job. I'm not questioning that, but just so that we as the Board of Aldermen know what's kind of coming down the pike. Would that be that much of a difficulty?
No, not at all, and that's a great suggestion. I'll come up with some type of documentation and, list them in priority of where they should be done, and, what can be put on the back burner, so to speak.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
That's great. Thank you. Alderman Gobert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To go off of what my two colleagues said before, I agree. I think looking past just this project, which I support, but looking the whole citywide, I think it would be good to get a schedule and maybe pick off a park every 2 years, every other year. Just make sure we're keeping our assets up to date, and it's always good when we could switch over to LED as well. And I look forward to seeing what the park looks like when it's complete, and hopefully that's kind of a springboard for the rest of our parks.
I hope so.
All right. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to place on file and approve the sole source purchase of asphalt and aggregates from Brock's Industries of Hudson, New Hampshire, and Continental Paving of Londonderry, New Hampshire, in an amount not to exceed $144,500. Funding will be through Department 161 Streets Fund, general account, classification 61 supplies and materials.
Mr. Varez here.
I am here, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So this is an annual expenditure. It comes out of our operating budget at the street department. I'm seeking to encumber the funding as a sole source. As you can see, reviewing the documents, the pricing, but more importantly, their geographic location to our operation. So on a daily basis, we run over the bridge to these facilities and we get our aggregates, our asphalt to help us achieve our jobs. Whether it's a mill and fill program or a small paving project or a sewer repair, sewer dig, this is where we get our materials and it's quicker and it makes the projects more efficient. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anyone? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to place on file and approve change order 1 to the contract with John W. Egan Company for the primary and secondary digester project in an amount not to exceed $61,400. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater Fund, Wastewater Activity Digester / Gas Tank Coating.
Hello, Mr. Boucher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dave Boucher, wastewater superintendent. This is change order 1 to a coating project, which is an active capital improvement project at the wastewater facility. 3 of the items on this were determined that needed attention. They're in the vicinity of our current project, which determined we could receive some cost savings, basically due to the mobilization cost would be eliminated since the company's already on site. This included coating of a ladder that goes to the top of our dechlorination building. It's a metal ladder that's completely rusted out. Also, we have a pipe in our wet weather facility that's right next to the digester complex that needs a coat of paint. And the rooftop, it's a concrete rooftop to our combined sewer overflow containment area. This is located right next to the digester complex. 3 of the items on this were located during the sandblasting and prep work of the primary and secondary digester. This included it's a metal apron that goes around the bottom of our digester or our sludge egg that needed a coat of paint. There was some work that was done to the concrete bases of both our primary and secondary digester. After the work was done, it was determined that a sealant coating would be necessary to seal up all the concrete. And also the chain link fence, it's a safety fence that wraps around the top of our secondary digesters, and our employees travel up there daily to check out the equipment that's on the top. That would have to be replaced. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Boucher, I saw that the contract says that the final completion would be about the end of January 2023. Are we still on track for that date? And with the increased cost of things, are we looking at this going up any further than what it is now, or do we think we'll stay on cost?
We'll stay on cost. The original project estimate was $750,000. If this is approved, we'd still looking at $210,000 remaining. So we're within that original estimate. Right now we're on schedule. We're expecting, it's possible that we could be done by September is the goal. They want to finish before temperatures get colder. It's hard to believe it might get colder, but we're still on track, on schedule.
Thank you.
Alderman Gouveia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question through you. So going off of what you just said, the original project was budgeted for $750,000, is that correct? Now,
That's
what
correct.
brought it down so much? That seems like a big leap from what was budgeted to what we're paying to execute the project.
Correct. That's an estimated cost. There was 3 large tanks that had to be done. The first tank came under budget and the second 2 tanks came under budget or estimate.
Sure.
So that's what led to the lower cost,
Okay, thank you.
which we're thankful for.
Of course, absolutely.
All right. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to place on file and approve the purchase of the Gorbel Road Ranger Fall Protection Unit from Mass Crane and Hoist Services, Inc. of Tingsboro in the amount not to exceed $46,202. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater Fund Wastewater Activity Davit Arm Replacement.
Mr. Boucher?
Thank you, Dave Boucher, wastewater superintendent. This was another capital improvement project that we had at the wastewater facility. We have several tanks throughout the facility. A lot of them are greater than 20 feet deep. We have to access these tanks for maintenance and do repair and general upkeep. There currently is a lack of safety going down these tanks. We do the best we can. But we brought in our safety equipment inspection company. They test all our harnesses, our hoist, to come up with the best way to enter all these tanks. And we came up with it's a mobile anchor. Basically, it's a davit arm it's trailer mounted, can be extended over 90% of the areas in our facility, and can also be used out on the street. Basically, you hook up a person with a harness to this equipment so they can safely go down into these tanks. The other 10% we're still looking at, it's probably going to involve attaching davit arm bases to the concrete. We couldn't do that everywhere in the facility because some of these tanks are aged. We'd have to have structural studies done and load testing done on all these areas we attach to the concrete. Fortunately, the last 10% is newer structures like our wet weather facility, so the concrete's in good shape. We put together some specs for this equipment. We reached out we tried to find different companies that could meet the specs. Unfortunately, only 2 could meet the specs. So we requested quotes, and Mass Crane was the low bidder on this. You happy to answer any questions?
Anyone? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next,
Thank you.
communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to place on file and approve change order number 1 to the 2022 sewer replacement project with Serve Construction West, Inc. of Winchester, New Hampshire for the amount not to exceed $500,000. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater Fund, Bonded Activity, Sewer Repair.
And we have Mr. Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we run 2 types of sewer projects. One is lining, and the other is a dig contract. This is a change order to the dig contract. We recently approved a new CCTV contract, so we're going to be doing a lot of video inspection. We would expect to find problems as part of that. So this change order is to bump up our dig contract so that we're able to quickly respond and make repairs when we find issues.
Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask you, Mr. Hudson, the same question that I asked Mr. Boucher. According to this, the contract or the final payment would be December of 2022. Are we on schedule for that? I would assume this is something you can't do in the cold weather either. So are you looking for this to be also done September, October?
Yes, I mean, SRS has been working all summer on the various improvements that we had identified previously. They're getting close to wrapping up that work that we had bid out and planned for. This is really to address unforeseen issues that come up. This contract does go till December. Should we not fully exhaust the contract and there was work to do next spring, I think we would carry it over just through a contract time extension. But the key here is to be able to respond to issues that we find, and to do that, we need to increase this budget.
Thank you.
Sure.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to place on file and approve change order number 2 for the Canal Street Bridge construction repairs contract in the amount not to exceed $34,000. Funding will be through Departments 160 Admin Engineering and 161 Street Funds, Capital and Grant Activities, Infrastructure Improvements, and Highway Block Grant.
Mr. Hudson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Dan Hudson, City Engineer. So this is a project we have currently underway. It's rehabilitation of the Canal Street Bridge. Canal Street Bridge is on the DOT's red list due to some structural issues underneath. There's concrete that has deteriorated and is falling, so it needs to be basically chipped out and then replaced. When we originally bid this project, their water was up and we couldn't see all of the area. And also since we bid this out, there's been additional deterioration. This contract order is to increase the quantity of the concrete repair work that's necessary to repair this to the point that we believe it will be able to be brought off the DOT's red list.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to place on file and approve the renewal of the GIS Enterprise License and Annual Agreement for the 3 years between the City of Nashua, Pennachuck Corporation, and ESRI, Inc., and in the amount not to exceed $115,308. Funding will be through Department 106 Administrative Services, Fund 54407, Software Maintenance General Fund.
Ms. Kleiner?
Good evening. Kim Kleiner, Director of Administrative Services. So we addressed this a little bit during our budget when we came to you for the GIS department. The City of Nashua and Pennachuck Corp. Have had an agreement for over the last 2 renewals, each 3 years each, to split the cost of our GIS ESRI renewal. The contract has generally caused for the initial license to be $50,000 a year, and we've split that. This year, we were alerted sometime back in May that cost would be increasing, and it increased to a little over $64,000. Additionally, the city required a couple new licenses for ongoing work that we were doing with CDM Smith for our new viewer, and also for work that we are doing with the assessing department. So there were 2 new licenses that totaled $6,000 a year, and the Pennachuck required another license for some work that they are doing, which came to $5,500. So we entered into conversations with Pennachuck how best to address this, decided the fee structure that we would work out so that they are absorbing some of the increase and the city's absorbing some of the increase. And so for the city, it'll be $38,436 a year for 3 years.
Alderwoman Cleage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Director Kleiner. I send you messages over the weekend about the GIS system, so you know that I use it pretty regularly. We just did an upgrade to the GIS. Does this maintenance also include that newest upgrade, or are upgrades separate from our maintenance contracts?
Great question. So these licenses do include the upgrades. These are upgraded licenses. If you've been on GIS, and I know Alderwoman Clee has, in the past couple days, we've been struggling, and the site has been down. That's because they're working with ESRI to update these new licenses and apply that. One of the best benefits of ESRI is we really have, between our IT department and also Pennachuck Corporation's IT department, we really have 24/7 access to customer support, maintenance support, and they've been working with us to get the new licenses installed on our servers. Of course, we just upgraded our server for GIS. Pam Andruskevich, our GIS technician, has done wonderful work. And we're also right now programming the revaluation site. So there's a lot going on. And I spoke with Mr. Miservich this afternoon, and he thought he'd have it all up and running by morning.
Thank you so much, and I'll try not to bother you as much.
Oh, no worries.
Alderman Gouveia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question through you, the Director Kleiner. So just to be clear with my numbers, it's going from roughly 25,000 a year to 38,436. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and that's increasing because of what you stated before. So the licenses as well as just the fee of the program in total, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then just another follow-up, if that's okay. Thank you. I see that this is a sole source, but did we look at any other types of programs in replacement of this, or are we happy with what we have and want to stick with it?
Great question again, because Esri really is the leading provider, and especially when you look at municipalities, they really have the field and the expertise. Pamela Andruskevich just went out to the annual conference. And across the country, over 14,000 people go to these conferences. Not only are they leaders in the software and the design that they have, but also in the education that they provide. There really is no one like them in the market.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to place on file and approve a request for an addition to a contract with Clear Sky to create processes for outbound and inbound updates to the A-Light system and/or Lawson system in the amount not to exceed $21,600. Funding will be through Department 106 Administrative Services, Fund 71228, Computer Software Benefits Fund.
Ms. Kleiner.
So this contract, it's an interesting situation, and I tried to be as clear as I could in my memo. So we, as everyone knows, entered into a contract with Alight to upgrade to an enrollment in our benefits that is online. And that project has been very successful. In fact, we just did open enrollment this year, completely online. Our systems within the city, mostly our Lawson system, required a lot of additional programming to allow Alight's programs to interface correctly. So we entered into a contract before open enrollment. We knew that these changes had to be made to our Lawson system. And we entered into a contract in March for $24,850. We did not bring that forward. It was under the finance threshold. The work needed to be done, and we are right up against the April enrollment. That was very successful, and everything went fine. Now we're moving into the second process for this, where we're looking at new hires, terminations, and changes throughout the year. And what we're finding is the Lawson system and the Alight system are going to require additional programming to be able to speak to each other. And most of that is due to how complicated the city is. So We have 17 different groups. We have people in different pay structures. And it's a very fast-moving situation. So we've been talking with Clear Sky, who has really been the city's consultant when it comes to any type of programming changes in Lawson for benefits, HR, and sometimes we've used them for GIS as well. They're gonna do some additional programming to make those new hires and terminations and our ongoing processes work. They're also going to assist us with some outbound files to our carriers that require. That, unfortunately, is going to cost another $21,600. The only caution I want to say is that in the contract, it talks to travel and expenses and us supplying. That does not happen. So these consultants work totally remotely from Michigan where they are. So there will be no additional costs above the $21,600. But together with the $24,850 that we already spent, we wanted to come forward to finance.
Anyone? Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Director Kleiner. I understand this, and thank you for having as much of this online as possible. It must save a little bit of time in your HR department. But the question that I have is, does this interface with that, and I know I'm calling it wrong, that healthcare shopper that we had, is this part of that, or are they really separate?
So Smart Shopper.
Smart Shopper, yes, thank you.
What we are working with Alight on now, we were under such a time crunch to get open enrollment through. We really focused just on that. Now we're working with Alight for all those additional programs, Smart Shopper being one, modeling of people's benefits so they can go out and they can decide which plan is best for them and their family's unique health situations. And everything, ACA reporting. I mean, Alight offers a lot of tools, and now we're working on the programming of all those additional tools. So Smart Shopper will be one that will be available. It's further down the line on the list. First, we need to deal with the new hires and terminations.
Just a quick follow-up comment. So, as you just said, that's something that comes down the line. As will all those other tools, you'll have to come in, obviously, for those particular items, even if they're under the 25,000, correct? Because in total, we're going to get higher than 25,000.
I don't expect that. So the programming of those additional tools is already in the contract with Alight. These charges are really for the programming between Alight and Lawson really won't be affected by any of those additional tools.
Thank you.
Alderman Gouveia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question through you to Director Kleiner. Do you see any more future payments going through or any more money that will have to be spent on this project? So we're adding another 21.6 to it. Do you foresee any more ask in the future for more money on this?
Great question. So I think when we looked at Alight, and we had gone out to bid for that through WBS, our consultant, we were really looking at what was most cost efficient to the city. We didn't at that time understand that there would be programming within our own existing city systems. And that was unfortunate. So, it added, roughly another $49,000 to a project that was quite unexpected. Having said that, the city would have had this problem no matter who we chose as a contractor. And in the long run, I think it's the cost savings that you're going to have from not having employees enter 2,800 health applications, and review them, and not only employees here, but at the schools, at the police department. We saw it this year, the cost savings that you can get from really having online benefit enrollment.
Thank you.
Alderman Tebow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question to you, to Director Kleiner through you. You kind of answered what I was going to ask there. So I just want to clarify. So the addition of having to put ads, terms, changes, new hires, all that stuff into our system was nothing that the vendor said originally, we can do that, no problem. It was the problem with the city's stuff that caused this to have the extra money that we have to pay, right? Is that what I'm getting from what you're saying?
Yes, that's correct. So it's our city Lawson system that required the changes, which would have been no matter what vendor you used for any online benefits. Lawson is sometimes a little difficult to use, and we have programmed it in a certain way that works very well for the city, but it doesn't always allow easy interface.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Unfinished business, this resolution, we still are going to brief the Board of Public Works on this in a few days, so I suggest we not take this off the table yet. Unless there's an objection, we'll go on to new business resolutions. We have none. New business ordinances, none. Record of expenditures. Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make motion that the Finance Committee has complied with the city charter and ordinances pertaining to the record of expenditures for the period from July 15th, 2022 to July 28th, 2022.
Anyone? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Motion passes. General discussion? Any general discussion? Public comment? Any member of the public wish to address the Finance Committee? Remarks by Alderman? Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to acknowledge that right before this meeting, I got to be on changing the stigma on National Public Television, which is what the guys over at WSNMN are changing up the way we do public television in the city, and it was great. It was a great experience. We talked about, I didn't go on really as an alderman, I went on as a mental health professional, and we talked about what's happening in the city, what's happening in the state. And it was hosted by James Klein, who he and I worked together at Mobile Crisis, and he's also pursuing a master's degree in social work, something that I already have. And he's just a great asset to the community. He already has a show on the radio station, and he's a former Marine. He had combat Marine. He also was in President Clinton's guard down at Camp David. And so he knows PTSD in and out from his work experience. We got to talk about that. George Russell assures me that our entire segment will be on Monday at 10 a.m. And he said I could announce that here tonight, but he assures me it'll be on local access on Monday at 10.
Sounds good. Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to announce something that some people know, some people might not know, and something I've talked to my constituents about, even though, I can't hit all 10,000 of them. I don't have all their emails. But one of the things that's happening, a lot of you guys know, August 1st, the rates for electricity from, I was going to say PSNH, but from Eversource are going from 12 cents a kilowatt hour to 22 cents a kilowatt hour. That is a huge increase. It's 112%, I believe, if I got that right. One thing people can do other than, use your air conditioners or your pools, even though it's gonna be 100 degrees tomorrow, is you can change your supplier. And a lot of suppliers right now are cheaper than the Eversource rate. You still have to get your everything comes through Eversource still, but you can change suppliers. A couple things you should know is that Some of these, like direct energy is one for an example. They sometimes have contracts that you have to sign or you have to fill out for 3 years, 2 years. And some have cancellation fees. So say Eversource's rate goes down, you wouldn't be able to break that without a cancellation fee. Well, some of them now don't have them. So if you're, to tell your constituents to try to look in shopping as a supplier, you can look for ones that don't have cancellation fees or maybe ones that don't have contracts, unless it's got a really good rate. But I'm seeing a lot out there of 15 cents, 16 cents, still cheaper. And once we get through this 100-degree day, you can go down. Eversource is not making profit off these changes. It's a pass-through, just like a lot of the utilities and different types of things like gas. And it's due to the supply and demand, the global supply of natural gas. That's causing a lot of problems. And the next rate change will be in January. So it could go down. I personally think it's not going to go down to 12 cents. But that's why I'm saying try to, if you're shopping, try to get a contract you can break, because it may go down in January, and then you can go back to Eversource. But Eversource is saying this as well. This is not something I'm speaking out of turn on. I work for Eversource. That's just to put that out there, and it's not. We're telling our customers to shop. So, thank you.
All right. Anyone? Yes, Alderwoman Cleve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Alderman, for bringing that point up, and I appreciate you sharing it specifically that it's not Eversource making a profit on it. We have Ms. Doria Brown, who has been working with that group for if I have it correct, Mr. Mayor, it's like a community co-op energy. I know that they're working on it. It hasn't quite come to fruition, but I've asked Ms. Brown to speak to my ward in September. If once that's all settled, would it be possible for her to speak to the Board of Aldermen to kind of explain
yes. I mean,
all of that? They're still working all the kinks out of it, I know. They're hoping that another month or two, so.
Yes.
But because we're going through this, maybe if she could kind of speak to what we hope will be for it, might be helpful to the community out there. I know she's agreed to speak to my ward in September. I just haven't firmed down the date yet, but I think it might be good just so that people know that some of the alternatives that you have spoken to, but there's a co-op that they're trying to put together. So I don't think it would stop that though, because that's not a profit thing. That's the pass-through.
No, it's going to hurt people. I think it's going to hurt people.
Yeah, it is.
And so
we're all going to feel it.
In the worst time, right? August is the hottest month.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone else? All right. Alderwoman Cleve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I'd like to move for adjournment.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting of the Finance Committee is adjourned at 7:42 p.m.